different conversation.
Speaking of last year's draft, Sam, last year's draft, if I remember correctly, was bad. That was like the theme. Was like these is Anthony Edwards really going to go number one? Should we take LaMelo one? No one wanted to talk themselves into any of these guys.
Yep.
This year seems to be different. It seems that people, certainly the top four, people seem to be excited about. What if you had to boil it down to like one bullet point of what this draft is? Not necessarily good or bad, but just like the theme of the draft, the feel of the draft. That's how we have to do things these days. Is like we have to
give me the vibe.
You have to have the vibe of what this draft is. What is the vibe of the 2021 NBA draft?
Yeah, so I'll give you 2 words. I would say top heavy, because the top 4 I think is exceptional. I think that all of the Cade Cunningham, Jalen Suggs, Jalen Green, Evan Mobley class would have gone number 1 last year at the end of the day. On top of that, I would say this is a really good shooting draft. I think there are a lot of high-level shooters that are going to come out of this draft and enter a league that is as desperate as ever to find more floor spacing, to find more guys that can consistently provide space for their lead ball creators to operate.
Sorry, as I was just thinking about the top 4, because I mean, I think Titus and I, we're college basketball guys, so we would assume that I think there's a top 3 in my mind, right? There's Cade Cunningham, there's Evan Mobley, and I understand that, Jalen, there are 2 Jalens, and most everyone would say probably Jalen Green is the 3rd, but Jalen Suggs, what he did in the tournament, what he was able to do at Gonzaga, obviously going undefeated, I think those are our top 3. So can you sell us on the other guy? Can you sell us on Jalen Green? Because I watched some Ignite games. I've seen the highlights.
Bullshit.
I've seen the highlights. I've heard Zach LaVine be thrown down as a shades of, which I enjoy. But can you just what do we see in Jalen Green? And it sounds like he's going to be the number 2 pick, right? As of now, it seems like Houston, they can't talk to Mobley, and they're kind of de facto going to Jalen Green.
Yeah, so my impression is Jalen Green, as of this moment, is most likely to go number 2 overall. I personally am kind of with you guys. I have the 3 college guys in the top 3 of my board.
Let's go.
I have Jalen Green 4. I really like Jalen Green. I think that he's one of the best scoring prospects I've ever evaluated. He's just crazy explosive and can get to his step back whenever he wants. He's a real shooter at a high level. But he doesn't really pass all that well. He's not a great defender.
Yep.
I think it's going to take some time with him at the end of the day to become a winning basketball player, not necessarily a good basketball player. I think he'll score basically from the jump in the NBA. But I mean, I look at someone like Jalen Suggs and I see a guy who I think can score, but also can pass it at a very high level, especially out in transition. He's one of the better on-ball defenders in this entire draft, I think. You look at the way that he plays when he's locked in. I think he's unbelievable on the ball. He's not quite Davion Mitchell, but in terms of long-term tools with the way that size matters in the NBA, if you wanted to make a case that you think Jalen Suggs is going to be a better defender in the NBA than Davion Mitchell, I would kind of buy that. I think he's a really, really high-level defender.
Wow. So speaking of Suggs, so I guess I want to flesh out this top 4 here because Cade's number 1, right? What was it? Woj today was saying that the Pistons are now maybe consider what is that smoke? Isn't Cade number 1 the whole way? And Detroit was people were the Rockets are apparently trying to trade up to get Cade because people want Cade so badly.
Well,
and now
from
all of a
Texas
sudden,
too. Yeah.
Now all of a sudden we're supposed to believe that Cade might not go number 1. That's not. There's no way that's true, right?
I mean, look, I've been reporting the whole way that I think that Detroit is going to undertake a process and is going to consider all avenues.
Wow.
I've heard some people tell me that Troy Weaver really likes Jalen Green. I've heard some people tell me that Troy Weaver really likes Evan Mobley. Now, does he like them more than Cade Cunningham? I don't know. You know what I mean? But I'll say this too. From the jump, I absolutely wrote, as soon as the lottery got done, I will bet you that the Rockets make a attempt to get this number 1 overall pick, if only because they have a real package that they can offer Detroit. They have a future Detroit first-round pick that they acquired in last year's draft. They have all of these picks from the James Harden deal. So if Detroit has even a relatively similar grade on Jalen Green and Evan Mobley as they do on Cade Cunningham, I mean, there's a world where I think that a trade could happen, but like, to me, it's like a no-brainer. I don't understand what anyone's talking about here. Like, Cade Cunningham is absolutely phenomenal, and he's 6'8" with a 7'1" wingspan, and he's a 3-level scorer, and he's an unbelievable passer, and he can defend, and he's like an elite level character guy. Like, I don't understand why we would be going down this road at this point, but feels,
unless you think Evan Mobley is like a true dominant big that could actually be something to, if you're trying to build a team to stop Giannis Antetokounmpo, if you think Evan Mobley could be that 5-man for you defensively, be that rim protection, and maybe develop into best case scenario DeAndre Ayton, but who knows, maybe better.
Yeah, it feels like DeAndre Ayton, where it's like that's not it could be a good thing, could be a bad thing. Like, he's slightly passive. What is your read on Mobley?
I love Mobley.
What is your comp for Mobley?
Yeah, I really like Evan Mobley too. I think, like, in terms of effectiveness, he's going to end up something like Chris Bosh. Stylistically, like, I do understand why people bring up the Giannis thing, because the way USC used him a lot this year was they'd like run him in dribble handoffs where he was both the guy accepting the dribble handoff and he was the guy that would be like handing the ball off, right? They'd run him in screen and rolls where he was both the guy handling the ball and the guy screening and rolling, right? So there's a lot of versatility to his game. He's an ambidextrous ball handler who can get to the rim. He's an underrated passer as well. But I mean, the big difference here in terms of what Evan Mobley brings to the table and Giannis is just like physically, right? Giannis has always had these enormous broad shoulders to where even when he was skinny at 19 years old, you kind of assumed that he was going to fill out at the end of the day. In the case of Evan Mobley, like, I'm not saying he's not going to gain weight, because I think he's at least going to gain like 20 pounds over the course of the next 5-6 years. But like, I don't really see that like outlier physical strength where he's going to be able to bully guys all the way across the rim. I understand people who are a little bit worried about him playing center long term, if only because he's not a very good defensive rebounder right now.
Interesting. I think I have the answer as to why all of a sudden Cade going #1 might not feel like the lock we thought it was and all that, because I think this is a memo from Adam Silver to make the draft more interesting. Because before we had you on, Sam, I thought that the top 4 were going to fall in line almost, that like it was going to be Cade, Jalen Green, Mobley to the Cavs, and then Suggs to Toronto. I thought like that just seemed to be, and then the draft would start at pick 5, which is not interesting. You're saying, Sam, that what pick does the draft start for you? What pick is it like? I'm curious to see what they do here, because I could see, I legitimately do not know. It could go either way. Is it 3? Is it the Cavs at 3?
No, honestly, like, I think that the top 5 in some order is set, right?
Okay.
Something along the lines of Cade Cunningham, Jalen Green, Evan Mobley, Jalen Suggs, and then Scottie Barnes, I think, is going to go 5.
Okay.
I don't really think that teams have much of a difference teams do have a pretty substantial difference that I've talked to in terms of him versus Jonathan Kuminga. So I would expect that top 5 to go something like that. Once we get to 6 and 7, I think this thing is just like totally up in the air, and you can just like burn my mock draft if I'm being real. I just don't I don't know. Like, I think that one of Jonathan Kuminga or James Bouknight is going to go 6 or 7. I think that the Warriors are considering 3 or 4 different guys at 7. I think that Orlando is a total wild card at 8. Sacramento seems like they're honed in on a couple of guys at 9. And then at 10, Memphis just moved up and came into the order and has thrown everything for a wrench. I think a lot of these picks are really up for grabs via trade, because everyone saw what Phoenix did this year. They moved from that 10-11 range in the draft last year up into the NBA Finals this year. And I think teams see it as a potential outcome, especially a team like New Orleans, for instance, that has this great young player in Zion Williamson, to where, hey, we can go sign Kyle Lowry, we can go maybe acquire a Jonas Valanciunas, and then maybe make our pick at 17, end up with a really good rookie. And we can spike up the order and end up in the top 4 in the Western Conference, which seems pretty wide open right now. So I think a lot of teams in that range are really trying to make moves up the Eastern and Western Conference hierarchy. and it's leading to some more significant trade discussions than I can remember, at least.
Well, that's awesome. So we have our answer. Top 5. Scottie Barnes. How much of it of Barnes going 5 is he's a Florida State guy and the Magic have the pick? Because that jumps out to me. That it's just like,
and it's wingspan.
It's just like
John
a local
Hammond
guy.
cannot
Yeah.
resist wingspan.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? He looked at guys in the Gumpo, John Henson, Thon Maker, Larry Sanders. He was like, I don't care that guy. I want that guy.
Well, like, here's the thing. I mean, you guys watched college basketball as much as I did this year, if not more, obviously. Like, was there ever a point
We
where
watched
you were
Ignite
like,
more, actually. We should be honest.
Yeah, I was busy breaking down the.
I know Kuminga's game well.
was there ever a point where you were like, oh yeah, I'm watching a, like, for sure top 5 pick with Scottie Barnes?
As an ACC guy, I would say I see potential, but I'm not the biggest fan of potential at all times. So I mean, it's kind of like Scottie Barnes and Isaiah Todd to me are two guys that fall in the same realm of, and Zaire Williams too, where it's like, I really like them. I see the potential. I want to. I could see them going as high as number 5.
Throw Greg Brown into the mix too.
Greg Brown's in there.
You caught Greg Brown at the right time. You're like, this guy's a top.
Jones could be in that class.
Yeah.
Where you're like, you could convince me that they're a top 5 pick on a given day, but then also you have to watch the full scope, and then you can't really. You can easily talk yourself out of Scottie Barnes being the 5th pick, in my opinion, you know. And I can understand Kuminga almost jumping him because people say he skipped a year of high school, like he reclassed, so he basically was a true 18-year-old playing in the G League. So like, I almost could convince myself that I'd rather have the kid that just went through that, who's super young and impressionable, and we can figure it out, than maybe Scottie Barnes. Scottie Barnes didn't show me enough to say he's definitely a top 5 pick.
Yeah.
But I see the potential.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm with you guys. Like, I have Scottie at 6. I actually have Kuminga at 5. Like, I would take Jonathan Kuminga over Scottie Barnes. But, like, NBA teams disagree, apparently, and that's all that I know.
How much?
And it's
how
like
much
a consensus thing. Like, it's not the just Orlando thing. Like, most teams that I talk to have a higher grade on Scottie Barnes than they do Jonathan Kuminga.
How much does the G League matter? Because we heard Jalen Green say that he believes that he would go number 1 if he would have gone to college.
Yeah.
And Kuminga and Jalen Green obviously ended college basketball when they decided to go to the G League, and college basketball, as you know it, will never be the same because of it.
It's over.
But in your sense, in talking to these teams, does that even matter, or do we just do idiots like Tate and I spend a lot of time talking about guys going to the G League versus Australia versus the overtime league versus what will prepare you best? At the end of the day, does that matter to NBA teams? What path you took to get here?
I think it matters to NBA teams insofar as they have to evaluate the context that each player is playing within, and each context is drastically different, right?
Yeah.
Like Josh Giddey in the NBL is playing in a professional league that is very physical, and like I've gone to those games. The refereeing in that league, I mean, you can just like fucking knock someone over in the paint and you're not going to get called for a foul.
Old Big East, baby, let's go.
Seriously, the NBL is like up-tempo old Big East.
I love it.
It's like the weirdest league.
I'm sold.
That's why we're losing in international play. We can't handle the physicality.
The NBL is like the NBA, like in a lot of ways in terms of spacing. It has obviously the same court, right? And I think that the court dimensions play a drastically important role that goes under discussed when kind of breaking down offensive play, because Jalen Green just had wider driving lanes this year than someone like Cade Cunningham did. He's playing with guys like Jarrett Jack. He's playing with real shooters. Whereas the highest 3-point shooter that Cade Cunningham played with this year, who took more than, I think, like 23s on their team, was Avery Anderson, who shot 33%. So, like, every time Cade Cunningham was driving, he's 6'8", so he naturally takes up a greater degree of space in the paint when he drives, just because he's bigger. And then on top of it, defenses are collapsing into him and trying to just stop him and strip the ball and do everything. And that's why I think you see the turnover numbers as high as they do, or as high as they were, just because the context of his situation at Oklahoma State was that he was crowded every single time he drove into the paint. So, look, to answer your question, I don't think Jalen Green would have gone number 1 overall had he gone to college. I think that he probably would have averaged 20 points a game because I think he was going to go to Memphis. Is that right?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Memphis or
Yeah.
Auburn.
Like
I think he said both at different times.
Yeah, like hot take, watching the Penny Hardaway offense this year was like not ideal at times, right? So maybe they
I
did
think
need
the
someone like
offensive
Jalen
in Penny's
Green.
mind is just be better. He's like, you're a 5-star.
Yeah.
Just score.
Yeah. Go make shots.
Yeah, do it.
Yeah, I think that's probably what would have happened. He probably would have averaged 20 a game, and it, may have been, oh, hey, like we've got this other great college player. But Cade Cunningham, I think, was always the most likely player to go number 1 in this class. I still see it that way at the end of the day.
Hey there, thanks for watching Titus and Tate. For the full friend of the program experience, subscribe right below and come join us for all things college basketball. The action is heating up. Come join Titus and Tate.